Turn your pain into power and your vision into reality. There comes a moment in every human life when the illusion breaks, when the mask falls, when the noise fades, and all that remains is the truth you have been running from. It is the moment you realize that no one is coming to save you. No opportunity will knock forever. No voice will beg you endlessly to become who you were meant to be. The world does not reward hesitation. It does not reward excuses. It rewards transformation. And transformation is born in pain. Pain is not your enemy. Pain is your awakening. Pain is your awakening. Pain is the signal that the old version of you is dying. It is the fire that burns away illusion. It is the pressure that forges something unbreakable. Every great empire was built on the ashes of struggle. Every great mind was sharpened by rejection. Every powerful individual you admire was once unknown, uncertain, and underestimated. But they made one decision that separated them from the masses. They refused to remain weak. They refused to allow their pain to define them. Instead, they allowed it to refine them. Understand this with absolute clarity. Your pain contains instruction. Hidden within every disappointment is a direction. Hidden within every failure is a blueprint. Hidden within every moment of suffering is the exact force required to elevate you beyond your current identity. Most people never discover this. Most people spend their lives numbing their pain, distracting themselves, escaping into comfort. They scroll endlessly, they complain endlessly, they wait endlessly, and they remain exactly where they are. But you are not here to remain where you are. You are here because something inside you refuses to accept mediocrity. Something inside you knows there is another level, a greater life, a stronger version of yourself waiting to be activated. That voice is not random. That voice is your future calling you forward. Your mind is the most powerful creative instrument in existence. It does not simply observe reality. It shapes it. Every structure ever built existed first in the imagination of a single individual who refused to accept the limitations of their current environment. Before steel became skyscrapers, it was a vision. Before electricity illuminated cities, it was an idea dismissed by skeptics. Before empires rose, they were dreams carried by minds that refused to surrender to doubt. And your life will follow the same law. You will become exactly what you believe yourself to be. If you believe you are weak, your actions will confirm it. If you believe you are average, your results will reflect it. If you believe you are powerless, you will unconsciously sabotage every opportunity that could elevate you. But the moment you decide with absolute certainty that you are no longer the person you used to be, everything begins to change, not instantly, not magically, but magically. Because belief is not merely a thought. Belief is a command. When you truly believe something, your brain reorganizes itself. Your attention shifts. Your habits shift. Your tolerance for mediocrity disappears. The things you once accepted become intolerable. The distractions that once consumed you lose their grip. You begin to move differently, speak differently, and the world responds accordingly. This is why clarity is power. Most people never decide who they truly want to become. They drift, they react, they allow circumstances to shape their identity instead of consciously shaping it themselves. They are like ships without a destination, carried endlessly by the currents of external forces. But you must become the captain of your own mind. You must see your future so clearly that it becomes more real than your present. Close your eyes and imagine the person you were meant to be. See how they walk. See how they speak. See how they carry themselves with certainty, discipline, and quiet confidence. That version of you already exists, not in the physical world yet, but in the invisible realm of possibility. And everything physical begins in the invisible. Every action you take either moves you closer to that person or further away. There is no neutrality. There is no standing still. You are either evolving or dissolving. This is why discipline is not punishment. Discipline is liberation. Discipline frees you from weakness. Discipline frees you from chaos. Discipline frees you from the prison of your lower impulses. When you wake up and act according to your higher vision instead of your temporary emotions, you take control of your destiny. Your emotions are not reliable leaders. They fluctuate. They rise and fall like waves. If you allow them to control your actions, your life will become unstable and unpredictable. But discipline is different. Discipline does not care how you feel. Discipline is rooted in commitment. It is rooted in identity. It is rooted in the decision that your future is more important than your comfort. Comfort is the most dangerous drug in existence. Comfort convinces you that there is no urgency. Comfort whispers that you can start tomorrow. Comfort seduces you into accepting less than you deserve. And tomorrow becomes next week. Next week becomes next year. Next year becomes a lifetime of regret. But pain creates urgency. Pain forces you to confront reality. Pain forces you to grow. And growth is the only path to power. Look at the strongest steel. It was not created in comfort. It was created in extreme heat and pressure. Look at the most powerful leaders. They were not created in ease. They were created in adversity. Adversity is not a barrier. Adversity is a gateway. It is a test that reveals who you truly are. And in this moment, you have a choice. You can allow your pain to break you, or you can allow it to build you. You can allow your past to imprison you, or you can allow it to empower you. Because the truth is this, your past has no power over you unless you continue to identify with it. You are not your past failures. You are not your past mistakes. You are not your past limitations. You are the person you decide to become right now. And that decision, that single internal decision, has the power to alter the entire trajectory of your life. There is a silent moment after every decision, a moment most people never notice. It is the moment where your old identity begins to resist its own extinction, because your current identity, no matter how limited, no matter how small, has one primary objective: survival. It wants to keep you safe. It wants to keep you predictable. It wants to keep you inside the boundaries of what is familiar. Even if what is familiar is painful, even if what is familiar is mediocrity. This is why change feels unnatural at first. This is why the moment you decide to rise, something inside you whispers, wait, this is dangerous, this is uncomfortable, this is uncertain. And that voice has stopped more dreams than failure ever could. It is not the external obstacles that destroy most people. It is the internal surrender, the quiet surrender that happens when they stop believing before the results appear. Understand this. Reality tests your commitment before it rewards your faith. When Thomas Edison was working to create the electric light, he did not fail 10 times. He did not fail 100 times. He failed thousands of times. Each attempt ended in darkness. Each attempt appeared to confirm the doubts of those around him. But he did not see failure the way ordinary people see failure. He saw feedback. He saw instruction. He saw refinement. Every failed attempt eliminated what did not work, bringing him closer to what would. Most people experience pain and interpret it as a signal to stop. Powerful people experience pain and interpret it as a signal to adjust. This difference in interpretation creates entirely different destinies. Your mind is not simply reacting to reality. It is interpreting reality. And your interpretation determines whether you rise or remain. Two people can experience the same rejection. One decides they are not good enough. The other decides they are not finished yet. Two people can experience the same loss. One becomes bitter. The other becomes unstoppable. The event itself has no meaning until you assign it, meaning this means your power has never been outside you. It has always been in your perception. This is why vision is everything. Vision is the ability to see what does not yet exist. Vision is the ability to hold an image in your mind with such clarity that your behavior begins to align with it automatically. Long before the world believed in automobiles, Henry Ford saw them filling the streets. He did not wait for permission. He did not wait for validation. He acted from internal certainty, while the external world remained blind. This is the burden and the privilege of vision. At first, only you can see it. Others will doubt you. Some will mock you. Many will misunderstand you, not because they are evil, but because they are limited by their own beliefs. They cannot see beyond the boundaries of their own identity. But you must, because the future you want requires the death of who you currently are. Not physically, but psychologically. Your habits must change. Your standards must rise. Your tolerance for distraction must disappear. You cannot carry the mindset of your old self into the reality of your new self. It will not survive there. This is why sacrifice is unavoidable. Every level of growth requires the surrender of comfort. You will have to sacrifice the need for approval. You will have to sacrifice the addiction to distraction. You will have to sacrifice the version of yourself that seeks immediate pleasure over long-term power. And there will be moments when it feels lonely. Moments when no one understands your transformation. Moments when the results have not yet appeared, but the old life has already disappeared. This is the valley where most people turn back, but this valley is not your grave. It is your proving ground. Abraham Lincoln lost elections. He faced rejection. He endured failure after failure that would have convinced an ordinary mind to surrender. But he was not operating from ordinary belief. He was operating from internal conviction. Conviction is stronger than circumstance. Conviction allows you to endure temporary defeat without accepting permanent defeat, because defeat is not an event. Defeat is a decision. The moment you decide to stop rising, defeat becomes permanent. But as long as you continue, defeat remains temporary. This is why resilience is not talent. It is identity. You must see yourself as someone who does not break, someone who adapts, someone who learns, someone who absorbs pressure and converts it into strength. Pressure is not destroying you. Pressure is introducing you to yourself. It is revealing capacities you did not know you possessed. It is forcing dormant strength to awaken. Just as coal becomes diamond under extreme pressure, your mind becomes unbreakable when it survives what once felt impossible. But survival alone is not enough. You must transform. You must take the energy of your pain and redirect it toward creation. Pain is energy. If you suppress it, it becomes poison. If you express it unconsciously, it becomes destruction. But if you channel it deliberately, it becomes power. This is how empires are built. This is how legacies are formed. This is how ordinary individuals become extraordinary forces. They stop asking, why did this happen to me? And they start asking, how can I use this? Because the moment you begin using your pain instead of resisting it, you reclaim control. You stop being the victim of your story, and you become the author. The moment you become the author of your story, everything changes, because authors do not wait for permission. Authors do not wait for perfect conditions. Authors create meaning where none existed before. Your life, up to this point, may have felt like a series of reactions. Reactions to circumstances, reactions to people, reactions to limitations you never chose. But now you stand at the edge of something most people never reach: awareness. Awareness that you are not merely existing inside reality. You are shaping it. Every thought you repeat becomes a signal. Every signal strengthens neural pathways. Every strengthened pathway becomes a habit. And every habit becomes a force that either builds your future or quietly destroys it. Most people never question the thoughts that run through their minds. They accept them as truth. They accept doubt as wisdom. They accept fear as protection. They accept limitation as identity. But those thoughts were never designed to elevate you. They were designed to protect the version of you that existed yesterday. Your mind is efficient. It automates what you repeat. If you repeat weakness, weakness becomes automatic. If you repeat hesitation, hesitation becomes automatic. If you repeat self-doubt, self-doubt becomes your default state. But the same system that imprisons you can also liberate you, because repetition is not your enemy. Repetition is your weapon. When you begin deliberately feeding your mind images of strength, certainty, and victory, something invisible begins to shift. At first, it is subtle, almost unnoticeable. But beneath the surface, your identity is reorganizing itself. You begin to expect more from yourself. You begin to tolerate less distraction. You begin to move with quiet authority, not because the world has changed, but because you have. This is the invisible phase of transformation, the phase where nothing appears different externally, but everything is changing internally. This is where most people quit, because the human mind craves immediate evidence. It wants proof. It wants validation. It wants reassurance that the effort is working, but the most powerful transformations are silent in the beginning. A seed does not break the surface the day it is planted. It grows in darkness first. It builds roots before it builds visibility. If you judge the seed during that invisible phase, you would assume nothing is happening. But everything is happening. The roots are expanding. The foundation is strengthening. The structure is preparing itself to support future growth. You are no different. Every moment you choose discipline over distraction. You strengthen your foundation. Every moment you act despite fear. You weaken fear's control. Every moment you remain loyal to your vision despite uncertainty. You reinforce the identity of someone who cannot be stopped. This is how self-mastery is built, not in dramatic public moments, but in quiet private decisions, when no one is watching, when no one is applauding, when the only thing driving you forward is the standard you have set for yourself. This is where true power is born, because external motivation is temporary. It fades. It fluctuates. It disappears when conditions become difficult. But internal identity is permanent. When you see yourself as someone who executes, execution becomes natural. When you see yourself as someone who finishes, quitting becomes impossible. When you see yourself as someone who rises adversity becomes fuel. This is why your environment matters. Not just the physical environment, but the mental environment you expose yourself to daily. Every image you consume shapes your expectations. Every voice you listen to shapes your standards. Every influence either strengthens your vision or weakens it. You must become ruthless with what you allow into your mind, because your mind does not filter truth from repetition. It accepts whatever you feed it consistently. If you surround yourself with negativity, limitation becomes normal. If you surround yourself with mediocrity, average becomes acceptable. But if you surround yourself with expansion, discipline, and vision, greatness becomes inevitable. This is why men like Andrew Carnegie rose from nothing to build industrial empires. He did not accept the identity he was born into. He exposed himself to ideas greater than his environment. He fed his mind with possibility until possibility became reality. He understood something most people never realize. Your external world will always reflect your internal world. If your internal world is weak, your external world will remain limited. If your internal world is powerful, your external world will begin to reorganize itself around your expectations. Opportunities will appear that were always there, but invisible to your former identity. People will respond differently to you, not because they changed, but because your presence changed. Confidence is not something you pretend. Confidence is something you build through evidence. Evidence created by keeping promises to yourself. Every time you do what you said you would do, your self-trust increases. Every time you break your word to yourself, your self-trust weakens. And self-trust is the foundation of power, because when you trust yourself, hesitation disappears. When you trust yourself, fear loses its authority. When you trust yourself, action becomes automatic. This is why your daily actions matter more than your intentions. Intentions do not build identity. Execution does. Your future is not built by what you hope will happen. It is built by what you do repeatedly, especially when you do not feel like doing it, because feelings are temporary. But identity is permanent, and the identity you build today will determine the reality you live tomorrow. Tomorrow is not something that arrives by accident. Tomorrow is something you manufacture through the decisions you make when today becomes uncomfortable. Most people wait for the perfect moment. They wait for clarity before action. They wait for confidence before movement. They wait for guarantees before commitment. And they wait their entire lives, because clarity does not come before action. Clarity comes from action. Confidence does not come before execution. Confidence is born from execution. Power does not come from waiting. Power comes from movement. The moment you move, even imperfectly, you break the illusion of limitation. You interrupt the cycle of hesitation that has kept you trapped inside the same patterns, the same results, the same identity. Action is the bridge between vision and reality. Without action, vision is hallucination. But when action becomes consistent, vision becomes inevitable. This is the law that governs all creation. When Walt Disney imagined a world that did not exist, people doubted him. They saw a fantasy. He saw destiny. He did not wait for belief from others. He moved with belief from within, brick by brick. Step by step, he converted imagination into physical reality through relentless execution. That is your responsibility now, to execute not once, not when it is convenient, but daily, relentlessly, without negotiating with weakness, because weakness will negotiate with you. Weakness will tell you that rest is more important than progress. Weakness will tell you that distraction is harmless. Weakness will tell you that you can afford to delay. But every delay strengthens the identity you are trying to escape. Every delay reinforces the version of you that chooses comfort over growth. And every time you override that voice, every time you act in alignment with your higher standard instead of your lower impulse, you weaken the grip of your former identity. You are not fighting the world. You are fighting inertia. Inertia is the force that keeps everything as it is. It keeps the weak, weak. It keeps the average, average. It keeps the invisible, invisible. And inertia only loses its power when confronted with decisive action. This is why speed matters. Not reckless speed, but decisive speed. The speed of someone who trusts their direction even when the path is unclear, because the path reveals itself through movement. Standing still reveals nothing. Movement reveals everything. Movement reveals your strength. Movement reveals your weaknesses. Movement reveals your fears so they can be conquered. Instead of imagined, most fear is not real. It is projected. It exists in anticipation, not in reality. The mind exaggerates consequences to protect you from discomfort. It creates imaginary scenarios designed to keep you inside familiar territory. But growth has never existed inside familiar territory. Every expansion requires confrontation with the unknown, and the unknown is where your future lives. If you remain inside what is known, you remain inside what already exists. Nothing changes, nothing expands, nothing evolves. But the moment you step into uncertainty with faith in your own adaptability, you activate forces that cannot be accessed any other way. You activate creativity. You activate resourcefulness. You activate instinct. You discover that you are far more capable than your former identity allowed you to believe, because capability is not fixed. Capability expands under pressure. This is why adversity often produces the strongest individuals. Adversity removes illusion. Adversity removes dependency. Adversity forces internal development. It forces you to stop relying on luck, on validation, on external rescue. It forces you to become self-sufficient. Self-sufficiency is power, because when you know that you can rely on yourself, fear loses its leverage. Fear can only control those who doubt their own ability to adapt. But once you prove to yourself through repeated action that you can survive discomfort, that you can solve problems, that you can endure resistance, fear begins to retreat. It loses its authority, it loses its influence, and in its place something else emerges. Certainty, not certainty that everything will be easy, but certainty that you will handle whatever comes. This is the mindset that separates those who dream from those who build. Dreamers wait for ideal conditions. Builders create them. Builders understand that reality bends in response to sustained effort. They understand that results lag behind effort, but they always arrive. They understand that persistence is not glamorous, but it is unstoppable. There is no defense against someone who refuses to quit. No obstacle can permanently block someone who continues advancing. No failure can permanently defeat someone who continues adapting, because persistence outlasts resistance. Time itself begins to favor those who remain in motion. While others doubt, you execute. While others hesitate, you advance. And slowly and visibly at first, but undeniably, reality begins to reorganize itself around your persistence. Doors that were once closed begin to open. Barriers that once seemed permanent begin to dissolve. Not because the world suddenly became easier, but because you became stronger. Reality begins to respond differently to the person who is aligned in thought, aligned in action, aligned in identity. Because when there is alignment, there is no internal conflict. There is no hesitation. There is no negotiation between who you are and who you are becoming. There is only movement. Direct, intentional, relentless movement. Most people live divided within themselves. One part of them wants growth. Another part of them wants comfort. One part wants greatness. Another part wants safety. And this internal division weakens them. It scatters their energy. It dilutes their force. It keeps them trapped in cycles of starting and stopping, rising and falling, committing and retreating. But power belongs to the person who becomes internally unified. The person whose thoughts, actions, and identity move in the same direction. This is when momentum becomes unstoppable. Momentum is not created in one dramatic moment. It is created in small, repeated victories over your lower self. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, momentum grows. Every time you choose execution over excuses, momentum grows. Every time you choose faith over fear, momentum grows. At first, the momentum is fragile. It must be protected. It must be reinforced. But eventually, it becomes self-sustaining. Eventually, action becomes easier than inaction. Eventually, discipline becomes natural. Eventually, the person you once struggled to becomes the person you are. This is when the external world begins to mirror your internal transformation. Because the world responds to certainty, people can feel it, opportunities are drawn to it. Circumstances reorganize themselves around it. Not by magic, but by law, the law of cause and effect. You have become the cause. And your new reality becomes the effect. This is the moment where many people become complacent. They experience progress, and they relax. They achieve growth, and they slow down. They taste success, and they lose their hunger. But you must understand this truth. Success is not a destination. It is a standard. It is not something you reach once. It is something you maintain daily, because the same forces that built your strength will begin to weaken if you abandon them. Discipline must remain. Clarity must remain. Vision must remain. The moment you stop feeding your vision, distraction begins feeding your weakness. The moment you stop expanding your mind, limitation begins reclaiming territory. Growth is not a one-time event. It is a lifelong commitment. This is why humility is essential. Not humility that makes you small, but humility that keeps you open. Open to learning, open to adapting, open to evolving. Because the moment you believe you have nothing left to learn is the moment growth ends. And growth is life. Look at Leonardo da Vinci. He did not confine himself to one identity. He did not accept limitation. He explored endlessly. He studied relentlessly. He expanded continuously. His greatness was not a product of talent alone. It was a product of curiosity sustained over time. Curiosity keeps the mind alive. Curiosity keeps the spirit expanding. Curiosity prevents stagnation. You must remain a student even as you become powerful, because power without growth becomes fragility. Power with growth becomes permanence. This is how legacies are built, not through one victory, but through sustained evolution, not through one moment of courage, but through a lifetime of courageous decisions. You are not building a temporary result. You are building a permanent identity, an identity that does not collapse under pressure, an identity that does not retreat in the face of uncertainty, an identity that does not forget its purpose when challenged by resistance. Purpose is your anchor. Purpose keeps you stable when emotions fluctuate. Purpose keeps you moving when motivation fades. Purpose reminds you why you started when the path becomes difficult. Without purpose, discipline feels heavy. With purpose, discipline feels sacred, because every action becomes meaningful. Every sacrifice becomes necessary. Every challenge becomes part of something greater than temporary discomfort. Your purpose does not need to be understood by others. It only needs to be understood by you, because you are the one who must live it. You are the one who must execute it. You are the one who must protect it from the distractions, the doubts, and the forces that attempt to weaken it. And there will always be forces that attempt to weaken it. The world tests everyone, not to destroy you, but to reveal whether you are truly committed. Commitment is proven through endurance. Anyone can begin when inspiration is high. Few continue when inspiration fades. But those who continue become unstoppable because they are no longer dependent on emotion. They are dependent on identity. and identity once forged through pain, discipline, and vision becomes stronger than any obstacle that stands in its path.